The NFL trade deadline is less than a month away, and the trade rumors are only heating up, especially around the wide receiver position in New Orleans, as there are new reports out there around potentially moving a wide receiver. Before we start the conversation and I give you my takes on what I would do, I want to ask you this question. Will the black and gold make a trade? Personally, I think they will. So I'm going to be typing my yes in the comment section. But what do you think? Put on your GM hat and share your thoughts. As we said, the NFL trade deadline is less than a month away, and we have some new reports about potentially moving a wide receiver. My name is Trace Gerard. Thank you so much for tuning into this edition of Saints Now by Chat Sports. Before we give you the context and where all of this came from, we have to lay the groundwork here. Obviously, the New Orleans Saints are 1-5. They are clearly a team that is in need of draft picks. They only have 5 selections moving into this upcoming draft, and they could potentially move off of some players, get some draft capital in return, get younger, and go out with the old, in with the new, and fully embrace the Kellen Moore era. So let's get into the trade buzz. This one starting off with Chris Olave, Rickey Scoops. For what it's worth, nobody really knows who this guy is, but he has been right on some reports before. Not going to sit here and say that this is 100% going to happen, but he's been right a lot of times, so I kind of tend to lean that he has an idea of what's going to happen. And for what it's worth, he also was saying that the Saints were actually targeting Tyler Shuck instead of Shedeur Sanders early on. So I have reason to believe him, especially when it comes to the black and gold. Saying that the Saints are now open to trading Chris Olave. They weren't willing to move him in the offseason, but that stance has now changed as the team is now listening to trade calls. And if you remember, there was a report way back when, a couple of weeks ago, that Nick Underhill put out there saying that the Saints are receiving calls and they are expected to be active and be sellers at the trade deadline. And for what it's worth, full transparency, I would not be surprised if Chris Olave does get dealt. I'm not saying I want that to happen. I'm just saying I simply think it is a very realistic thing that could inevitably happen, because there are a handful of teams out there that are definitely in the need of a young wide receiver. And if Chris Olave isn't going to figure it out and can't turn it around, then he is a player that could potentially be moved here before November 4th at 4 p.m. Now, in terms of destinations, a few places come to mind. There's a lot of them out there, but the 3 big ones that stick out to me, the Steelers for sure. The Patriots are definitely a team that could use another wide receiver alongside Stephon Diggs, Pop Douglas, and for Drake Maye. And I do think that the New York Giants are a team that could potentially be shopping for a wide receiver as well. And I'm going to go ahead and let you know if there are any moves made ahead of the trade deadline or at the trade deadline. Lopez and I, we're going to hop in the studio. We're going to get you guys some content. We may even go live depending on what the move is. So make sure you subscribe, turn on your notifications. That way you don't miss any news, updates, rumors, or any chatter around the black and gold. Now, when it comes to this Kellen Moore conversation about whether or not Chris Olave is a part of long-term plans, I don't know the answer to that question. But Kellen Moore, he does need to find the answer to that question. Is Chris Olave a part of the long-term plans? Because the answer to that question will be the sole factor into whether or not the Saints end up dealing this player. And of course, if you get an offer that you can't refuse, maybe that changes some things. But when it comes to Chris Olave, you have to consider all of the factors here. He is a player that was red hot starting off his NFL career, over 1,000 yards in his first 2 seasons back-to-back. He really showed a lot of development. He showed a lot of growth, and he was a player that I thought was only going to get better. But in 2024, he missed substantial time due to concussions, and that has been an injury that has happened and popped up for him multiple times throughout his career already. And for the New Orleans Saints, you are seeing a little bit of a dip in production from him. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's 100% his fault, but I will sit here and say that it is a large majority of his fault that he's dropping passes, that he's not making the catches that he needs to be. And it's really, really frustrating because when you look back into his rookie and his sophomore season, he was making insane catches. He was sacrificing himself almost to a fault to make the play, and he was a contested catch freak. He was a walking highlight reel. But then, after last year, I have a feeling that there's a little bit of trauma based off of all the injuries that have happened. And I think he's a little bit reserved, and I think he's kind of holding things back to a certain extent, which I don't blame him for. But I do think that it's something that is a very realistic observation that I've made watching every single snap of this season so far. Now, quarterback-wise, I do think trading away Chris Olave would actually be really risky. I think it's risky for a lot of reasons. One being you may not get a good return. Two, you don't know if that draft pick is going to hit. You don't know what you're going to use it on. Three, maybe he goes off and pops off and does some crazy things. He just, in a funk, or he had the yips. I don't know. There's a lot of risks here. But a big one that I'm really worried about is if you do trade away Chris Olave, Spencer Rattler is going to suffer. Tyler Shuck is going to suffer. Taysom Hill, when he throws the football, will suffer because you are automatically lowering the overall talent level in your wide receiver room, which is already very, very thin and lacks depth and lacks high-end talent. So you are playing with fire if you do move off of Chris Olave. And if you do trade him, you're going to need a wide receiver in return, which in my opinion would lower the value of the draft pick you get in return. So when you consider trading Chris Olave, you have to answer the questions. And we're going to go back to that question here in a moment. But first things first, got to tell you guys about today's presenting sponsor, and that is Prize Picks. This episode of Saints Now by Chat Sports brought to you by Prize Picks. And we make decisions every single day, but over on the #1 daily fantasy app in the world, being right can get you paid. So download the Prize Picks app, use code CLNS, and you'll get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. If you want to pick more on Josh Allen's passing yards, rushing yards, and touchdowns, now you can do all of those in the same lineup only on PrizePicks. And you can follow other players directly on the PrizePicks app. You can copy their lineups in one click. And whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or someone whose picks you just really like, you can hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab over on PrizePicks, making watching sports and making money and playing daily fantasy sports. It just makes it so much more fun when you check out the feed tab over on PrizePicks. Now, I got a fun lineup for this week. Thursday Night Football, DK Metcalf, Jamar Chase. I've been in love with these make one play and it hits. 2 catches, 2 touchdowns, your boy's cashing in. It's easy as that. So make sure you download the PrizePicks app and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Shout out to PrizePicks. Download the app. The link is clickable in the comments and description of this video. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, let's return to the question. Is Chris Olave part of Kellen Moore's long-term plans for this offense? This isn't officially Kellen Moore's team. This is his offense. How is he going to want to build it? Does he want to have a ton of speed? Does he want to have a lot of size? Does he want to be a physical team? Does he want to be a run-first team? He needs to figure out, is Chris Olave a part of the equation for the final product? You have to consider the final product because we are far from that in New Orleans. And so for Kellen Moore, how do we get from point A to point Z? And is Chris Olave a factor in all of that in between? If the answer is yes, that Chris Olave is a part of the long-term plans, I think that you should actually invest around him, bring in some complementary pieces. And I'm not saying go and make trades. I'm saying as you get to the offseason, go and sign players, draft some wide receivers, add some big-bodied alpha talent that can complement Chris Olave's skills and usage. But if the answer is no, Mickey Loomis, Kellen Moore, you better be greedy as all get out and be super duper ridiculous with your asking price. Because if teams are desperate, not ridiculous, let me rephrase. If the answer is no, just be greedy. Kellen Moore, Mickey Loomis, trade him away and be extremely greedy with the asking price. Ask for a lot. You have control. You have the player that the teams are interested in. You have the guy that teams feel desperate that they need to go and get. Take advantage of that desperation. Exploit it. Make them overpay. Too many times have we seen Mickey Loomis get fleeced in trades, and I know that it's such a brave thing to say, I'm okay with making trades as long as we don't get fleeced. How many times have we seen it happen? Got to give Loomis credit because when he made the Marshall Lattimore trade, we clearly won that option, or we won that one out. But I just think when it comes to trading Chris Olave, you need to be greedy. He is a first-round talent. He's a player that has very high upside, and I understand all of the pros and all of the cons. Be greedy. You have the keys to the car. You have the keys to the kingdom. You have the player that other teams want. Make him pay up. Prime real estate. Now, share your thoughts in the comments section. What would you realistically want in a return for a Chris Olave trade? I mean, like, I think a first-round pick is a little bit unrealistic. I would like a second-round pick. Is that unrealistic, Lopez? I don't really know. Like, third feels like a very realistic option. Fourth and a receiver feels like a good option. But I think first or second might be unrealistic. What do you guys want in return for Chris Olave? What would it take for you to move off of this wide receiver? And if it's an absolutely not, you're not trading him, that's fair as well. Share your thoughts with that. Now, I remember I mentioned that the Patriots were a team that were interested or could be interested in Chris Olave as a destination for a trade. Rickey Scoops also added this into the mix. The Patriots have been on the phone with teams and are aggressively looking to trade for a wide receiver before the deadline. Sounds like Drake Maye may be getting another weapon. Now, when it comes to this report, originally my thought went straight to the Patriots are going to want Rashid Shaheed. They would rather actually have Rashid Shaheed. And I talked to the office Patriots fans and the guys in the office who cover the Patriots. They said that they actually just need a wide receiver to stretch the field. They need a vertical threat. They need somebody to be that deep threat so that way Kayshon Boutte and Stephon Diggs can operate over the middle. Sure as hell sounds like Rashid Shaheed. I think that the Patriots would actually be more interested in Rashid Shaheed, but I don't necessarily know if the Saints are more interested in trading Rashid Shaheed or Chris Olave. That's something I just simply don't know. But when it comes to trading Rashid Shaheed, that is something that is entirely off my bingo card. Now, Mickey Loomis, Gail Benson, Kellen Moore, Doug Nussmeier, the New Orleans Saints, entire staff, I don't care what position you have. If you're watching this video, please, 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 please just listen to this next 10 seconds. Do not trade my Pookie Bear. Do not trade my Sweet Prince. Do not get rid of number 22. That would be organizational malpractice. It would be a terrible decision, and I would have the crash out of all crash outs. I mean, I may walk out of the studio like AB walked off the field at MetLife. I genuinely would cry grown man tears if we traded away Rashid Shaheed. I was very high on him from the jump start of him being signed as a UDFA out of Weber State. I was one of the first guys, if not the first guy, on the Rashid Shaheed hype train. And I know y'all have seen my calls. I know y'all have seen me get tomato red when Rashid Shaheed gets the football. I cannot stress this enough. Trade anyone except for my Pookie Bear. My Sweet Prince deserves to be in New Orleans for the long term. And for what it's worth, I think that actually keeping Rashid Shaheed would be a smarter decision because I think you could make him a cheaper offer for a contract. I think that he's a player that you could have be your deep vertical threat, and then you add another player to complement him, similar to like I said with Chris Olave. I just think that keeping Rashid Shaheed is a thing that Saints need to prioritize, not trading him away. I understand that he's in a contract year. I understand that you may be able to get higher return than you may be able to turn a UDFA into a day 2 draft pick. Like, that would be insane. Or a day 3 draft pick. That would be insane. High-end pick. My point being, please don't. Don't do it. Keep Rashid in New Orleans. Anyone but 22. Please. Now, if you really feels like damned if you do, damned if you don't, when it comes to the New Orleans Saints, for a lot of reasons, but specifically for this whole situation we're in right now. I mean, doesn't this suck? Doesn't it blow? I mean, show of hands, who's having fun right now? Who's enjoying themselves as a Saints fan? Who's enjoying walking around wearing the black and gold? I'm not. Rebuilding sucks. Being a bad team blows. And sure, there has been some fun moments, and there's been some things to be excited about. But a lot of fans out there were begging and pleading for a rebuild. They were begging to tear it all down. They were begging to blow the whole joint up and start from scratch. Now that we're here, it's not so fun, is it? It's a lot more fun to just talk about on Twitter and to just put out posts and to just bitch and complain. It's a lot more fun to do that. But when you're actually in the heat, it sucks. It's not fun. I don't want to trade Rashid Shaheed. I don't want to trade Chris Olave. I don't want to trade away players. I'd love to keep the guys on the roster. I'm a Saints fan. I don't want to lose some of these dudes. But at the end of the day, you have to think about the future, and it's a business. And if business ain't going well, you got to make changes. And that's where we're at, unfortunately. Now, who is a player that is off your trade block? For me, Rashid Shaheed. No question asked. He cannot be traded. I will not accept. If it does happen, I just will refuse to believe it. It didn't actually happen, and oh my God, you're going to want to tune into that live show. So get in the comments, share your thoughts. Who's a player who the Saints cannot trade in your eyes? Appreciate you guys for rocking and rolling with us here on Saints Now by Chat Sports. The trade rumors are heating up around Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, and the trade deadline is less than a month away, and I don't expect any of this buzz to go anywhere. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you turn on your notifications. If Kellen Moore or anyone within the New Orleans Saints shuts these down, we'll make sure you know. If the Saints end up making a trade, we'll let you know. So lock us in, and y'all stay golden. We will see you next time.